Thank you guys for joining this live stream. So I'm going to talk about three things that you should know from the Flutter 2.0 updates. So for those who haven't watched the Flutter Engage events, I got you. All right. So the three Flutter updates you should know is basically one, it, two, is, and three, amazing. Yes. No, I'm just kidding. So jokes aside, the three things I want to share today is actually not it is amazing, but the most like popular thing that a lot of people are talking about is Stable Flutter Web. The second one is new Flutter Dev Tools, and the third one is migration to now safe or now safety. All right, so let's get started with the first one. Let's talk about the Stable Flutter Web. So there are probably three questions you might ask about Stable Flutter Web. So I'm going to briefly run through on what this Stable Flutter Web or this section is about, because Anga, the next speaker, will probably have more things to share with you. So this will be very brief. So I'm going to share with the three questions: what is stable, what is suited for Flutter Web, and what is not suited for Flutter Web. So let me start with the first one. What is stable? So inside the Flutter GitHub channels, right? There are four channels, or you could say four GitHub branches. So the first one is master, and I'm going to describe you the different channels in emojis because I think a lot of us are so in tune what emojis are. So for master, we'll probably have this emoji. Why? Because master is where there's a lot of things that is it's experimental. So a lot of things can be breaking. A lot of things can not work here and there, but it's the most updated. So you're pretty shocked on what things there are to come and what things can also break. So if you want to be at the tip and the frontier of the new Flutter tech, then I will highly recommend you to go to the master. The second channel, which is a little bit less riskier, is called beta. So beta, it will be the less thing that the less I would say up to date. But I guess there's a lot more tests that has been run in the beta channel as such, and this is where you'll be a little bit surprised, but at the same time, it is still a bit more stable than the master channel. And then the third one where I usually go to, which is the dev channel. So dev is short form for developer channel. And this basically has a few bugs here and there, but not a lot to the point that, you have to, like be shocked, but you'll be happy to see there are new things here and there. So for me, I love to go to the dev channel because it's not too breaking and not too new in a sense. But yeah, that's where I usually go to. But I think for most of us who creates production level apps, right, I will highly recommend you to go to Stable. So Stable is where everything should be fine. If there were to be like a major bug, then I think the Flutter developer team will have a hot fix in the Stable just to like mend out all of the important bugs that's in the Stable channel. But most of the time, there won't be a lot of like breaking changes or bugs that is present. So when we say Flutter Web becomes stable, what it means is that it has gone through so many iterations, so many channels, and so many users from people who are in beta, dev, and master to the point that we are confident, or the Flutter team is confident that they will push, like for example, Flutter Web to stable. So that's what stable means. So the second question that you might have is what's suited for Flutter Web. So during the Flutter Engage, I think Team Sniff and I think the people in the Flutter Web team, or the people who are working in the Flutter Web side, they say that Flutter Web is not really a web framework per se, but more towards an extension of your Flutter apps. So that's where you can, create progressive web apps. And people, if you don't know what's progressive web apps, is basically apps that you can download from the internet. So you can download it from a web browser, or you can download it from your apps, and then it can work as well or even better than a native app. But I think the native app is still better because there's certain functionalities that a native app can actually work on. But for Flutter Web, progressive web app is one thing that that is meant to be built for, I guess, in a sense. Then second is single page application. So those web applications that, for example, the more popular one is called Rive. So Rive is an application where you can create animations that is small and fast and performant. So Flutter has this very great rendering engine that allows you to make very fast and interactive performant uh, web application. So single page application is, I believe, also, and what the Flutter team and even in the documentation state that it's meant to be. And then last one, it is also to extend existing mobile applications. So for example, you have a Flutter app and then you want to extend it to the web platform. You can use you can convert it into a mobile app that runs on the website, or you can make it even a PWA, because Flutter has the feature of one code base, and then you can just run it through different platforms. Maybe you have to put a little bit of different configurations, but there's not a lot for it to be hard for you to move on to the web. So these are the three things that what Flutter Web is suited for. But I think a lot of people are talking about what Flutter Web should be or what it is not suited to be. So Flutter Web is not really suited for text-rich, flow-based static content. What do I mean by this? So examples are like landing pages or like blog articles. Because for Flutter Web, the rendering engine that it has is very fast. So rich interactive apps like Rive, where you have certain applications that you need to make a shape and then enlarge it or make it smaller. Flutter engine really works very well. Even for a game, it is pretty performant. But if you want to have static websites like landing pages and blog articles, I don't think it is what Flutter Web is meant to be. But you can definitely build landing pages and blog articles with Flutter Web. But if there is an alternative, I would highly recommend you to do it. To do the alternative, you can use web builders or even normal HTML, CSS, because it is like Flutter Web has potential to be a performant, rich, interactive framework, but you use it for not what it's meant to be. But if you still want to use it, there is nobody is going to stop you. You can do it as well. So these are the things that I think what I want to talk about for the Flutter Web. All right, so I'm going to move on to the next one, which is the new Flutter Dev Tools. So I'm going to give you a little demo if I can make it work, because somehow I tried it, but I'm going to run it on Chrome. So this Dev Tools is basically something that you probably use when you're creating your Flutter apps. And then there are new Dev Tools that I'm going to showcase, which is basically how you are going to debug overflowed widgets. So for example, widgets that suddenly extends a lot and such. So I wanted to show you in Android emulator, but that's fine. So I have a simple side project app where it's called Flutter Challenges. It's a quiz app. So that's why I'm also hosting the quiz later on. So it is pretty simple. You have a quiz app and then you go to the quiz app and such. And then after that, you, for example, click on it, submit, and then you want to know what's the explanation. And then, oh, okay. So basically, how you can go to the DevTools is to click Command Shift P, and then you can open this command called Open DevTools. So they have a lot of specific different tools that you can use. So if you really want, you can use Open DevTools in its own separate web browser. That's where you can get the full functionality of the DevTools. So the first thing I want to showcase is this thing called the Invert Oversized image. So let me zoom in for you guys. Okay, so if I were to hover over this, it says enable oversized images. So for myself, I'm pretty lazy. I don't really have the time to, see which images are taking a lot of space. So if I were to click on this, if you were to see what changed over here, you could see that my images on this explanation tab suddenly, what do you call it, flipped. This is because it is oversized and it takes a lot of space. And if I were to go back over here, you could see all of my images are now flipped. That means that I have images that's pretty big, even though, and it also showcased in my debug console so far. Okay. All right. So you could see how much space I've used for a simple image, which is only 150, but I'm using an image aspect ratio of like 1080 to 1080. And the cool thing is that it tells you how much of space you are wasting to render a simple small image. 5,957 kilobytes. That's 5 megabytes. And I don't think that it's a small size. 5 megabytes is pretty huge. So that gives an idea on like, okay, I should probably optimize my images to something smaller so that for a user who does not have a good internet connection, then it will take a long time for it to load, and then it might give a bad user experience, and they might, delete my app, which I don't want to, or none of us want to, right? So that's where this tool is really helpful. So at the same time, I want to also do an image overflow. So for this, is called the bottom explanation bottom sheet. Okay, so what I will do is then I will make this image overflow by just putting a simple okay, let me not flip this as well. Okay, so if I were to go to the explanation, so if I submit and if I show the explanation, typically you will see an overflow. And I think most of us who have used Flutter have seen this yellow and black, which is pretty ugly. So the thing is, it's something that we don't like to see every time when we, create our apps. So it should actually show an error. It doesn't show. Okay, why is that so? So maybe it's running on web. That's why it's not being shown. Let me try again. So if I were to open the Dev Tools again and then go to the widget inspector page, then let's see if it's loading correctly. So what I wanted to show is basically if there was an overflown or an image or widget that is having this overflown thing, it will show exactly where you are doing it wrongly. So sorry for this, but it doesn't show for some reason, but that's fine. So yeah, so basically I need to, it will pop up a window here that says show the widget that is supposed to overflow, but that's fine. So when you click on the window, it will redirect me exactly to what where the widget is, so that I can actually do the correction. So for this, basically in a row, if I were to put an image that's very large, it will expand as much as possible. Let me try to open the DevTools again in my web browser. Let's see if it works. All right. So, but trust me, the DevTool is pretty cool. Right. So it doesn't really load that much, but that's fine. So in order for me to correct this overflown image, right? What I need to do is make it into a flexible widget. So flexible widget will actually make it constrained to its space that it has. So if I were to save this, for web, it will just refresh the whole thing. So let me hot refresh this thing. Okay, let's see if it works. So it should work, and okay, it doesn't. Okay, never mind. So yeah, so let's take it that it works, and then yeah, that's how you solve this. But that's fine. So I'm gonna move on to the next one because I think I don't have a lot of time. So next one is I want to migrate my current project to Now Safety. So I think this is something that is pretty important for a lot of us. We have existing projects that we are still working on, and then there is this new feature where you can make your project into a Now Safe, or make it safer for you. So there are two situations that you will go through, which is the first one, ideal migration. So if you have basically what we all want is to have ideal migration where we don't have any errors and such. But second one, probably I will give you a realistic migration where you will see the different obstacles they have to go through in order for you to migrate to null safety. So let me focus on the first one, the ideal migration. So the ideal migration goes something like this. You want to first update your packages to null safe. So then you probably have all of the packages to have all the null safe version. So for example, you have a package that's a provider package and it's null safe. Then another package, maybe URL launcher is also null safe. Great. So you have two or you have all of the packages to have null safe version, and then you can migrate your project to be null safe as well. And then your project, for some reason, have no errors after you migrate to null safe. So we all know that this is usually not the case because I think we programmers has faced so many errors to the point that nothing will go through smoothly as what we intend to. So I'm going to go through what exactly will go through if you want to migrate to null safety. So advantages to go to null safe is that you have less errors and it's going to make your code smaller, and smaller code usually faster code as well. And but at the same time, if you want to migrate to null safe as well, there are certain priorities as a developer you want to focus on. Sometimes you have features that you want to create and then you don't have time to migrate as well. So that's when incremental migration comes in, where you just want to migrate certain parts of your files so that you can also work on the things that's on your list of to-dos, right? So, but before you want to migrate, first of all, you must check whether your packages are null safe. So we will find out that some packages are not null safe. So let me go to my simple project over here, and then let's go to the terminal. Okay, so in order for me to no null safe dot migrate. So a simple what do you call this? Command line command is dot pub upgrade dash dash null safety. Then if you were to press enter, it will actually check through all your dependencies to see whether they are null safe. So then you could see that there are a couple of these packages that can be null safe as well. So if you were to run this dot pub upgrade dot dash dash null safety, it actually upgrades for you. So it's supposed to be yes, yeah. So but before that, you want to see whether your packages are outdated. So you can run this dot pub outdated dash dash mode null safety. But either way, it's pretty simple and it does all the work for you, which is pretty great. So I have an ideal case where I don't have some packages that are not null safe. But if you don't have any packages that are not null safe, even one of them, then don't migrate, because we need all of the packages to be null safe in order for our Flutter project to be null safe as well. So the next part is we want to have incremental migration as well. So first, migrate the independent files. That means the independent files are files that doesn't depend on each other. For example, your utility.dart, so like for example, is null. You have a function that's called is null to check an object whether it's a null, right? So you will probably have to convert this file into its you have to convert this file into null safe. So simply, in order for you to do that, what we can do is we can type in dot migrate. So it will then analyze our projects and see whether we are eligible to be migrated into the null safety. So this actually checks your dependencies as well to see whether you have all of your dependencies to be null safe. So I've already converted all of my packages to be null safe. And once we are eligible, then you don't have a success message, but you have this link that you can go to in order for you to go and see this migration tool. So this migration tool is pretty cool, where it actually checks all of your files and actually helps you migrate. So for example, like I say, you probably have a utility file that allows, that doesn't really depend on other files. For example, I have this colors file where I just have my own set of colors. So you probably have to migrate this what you call this color, this utility file. Then you can just uncheck all of the boxes that you don't want to migrate first. So let me go to my colors, and then you can just apply migration, and then you press OK. And then if you were to go back to your Dart or your Flutter project, it actually migrate the file, the single file that you chosen. But at the same time, I mean, before that, you before you do any migration, sorry, I forgot to tell you, but you have to also commit your code, because it actually changes the files as well, for all of your other files. So with incremental change, with the incremental changes strategy, for you to bits by migrate bit by bit, it actually gives this entry point, what do you call this, the Dart version entry point, so that when you want to run a mixed version, so you have a non-null save files and null save files combined, then you'll probably have to use you have to run the Flutter project in a mixed version for your projects. So you can run non-null stuff with non-null files and null stuff as well. So for the non-null files, you will be generated this simple line of code where it just says, okay, this file is Dart 2.9, which is the before the non-null save, if I'm not wrong. Yep. Okay, so once that's done, let me go back to my slides. The next thing is, once you have made all the migrations for, we call this a leaf library, but I would say independent files. The next thing is we want, okay, so the next thing is you need to basically have your different files as well to be migrated as well. Okay, there is something wrong with my deck. Okay, so after you have migrated your independent files, the next thing is to migrate your files that is dependent on the independent files. Okay, so once you have done that, the next thing is to have migrate your libraries that directly depend on the leaf libraries or the independent files. So what it looks like is that you have file C that depends on file A and B. So file A and B has already migrated to null safety. Now file C is able to migrate it as well. Then after that, the last one will be you will migrate the libraries or the files that have the most intra-package dependencies. So simply like you have a file C, a file D that depends on a file C. So then you will have to migrate after that as well. But this is just a simple case. Probably file D has another file that it depends, and it's interweb and such. So with the migration tool, I think it's pretty easy for you to migrate as well. So if you were to have a mixed version where you have null files with non-null files to be combined, and you want to run it as well because you want to do incremental migration, then this is the command that you do, where if it's a Dart library, you can run Dart no sound null safety run, or you can, for Flutter project, then you can run Flutter run -- no sound null safety. So that's about it. Yeah, so I want to thank you guys for for and listening, even though there was a lot of things that goes wrong, but that's about it for today. So the three things in summary is the first one, the Flutter Web stable. The second one is basically the new dev tools that I did not manage to show you the second half, which is the debugging of the Overflow widgets or the widget inspector, and lastly, how to migrate your null saves. All right, so that's about it. Thank you guys.